She thought you'd always be there. She thought you'd always chase, always wait, always be an option for her convenience. But then, one day, something changed. You stopped calling. You stopped caring. You stopped being available. And that's when it hit her. Like a tidal wave of regret. She didn't just lose a man, she lost a real man. A man who carried himself with self-respect, who gave his best, and who understood that his worth wasn't tied to someone else's validation. And now, she's left with echoes of what once was, realizing too late that some losses are permanent. But here's the key. You didn't walk away out of spite. You walked away because a stoic man doesn't beg, doesn't chase, and doesn't hold on to what isn't his to keep. In this video, we're going to break down exactly what happens when a woman realizes she let go of a real man, through the lens of Stoicism and emotional mastery. Let's get into it. Number 1, I never thought he'd leave. In her mind, you were supposed to stay. No matter what happened, no matter how she treated you, she believed you would always be there, always reaching out, always trying, always proving your devotion. That's the version of you she had built in her mind. A constant, a certainty, a safety net she could fall back on whenever she pleased. But then the silence came. At first, she barely notices. Maybe you're just busy, caught up with work, friends, or life in general. Maybe you need a little space, just like she sometimes does. It's nothing to worry about, she tells herself. You'll come back, just like always. Any moment now, her phone will light up with a message from you. Checking in, making conversation, proving, once again, that you're still there, still orbiting her world. But the message never comes. The calls don't arrive. The days stretch into nights, and the silence lingers, growing heavier with each passing moment. At first, she resists the thought, brushing it off as stubbornness on your part. He'll break eventually, she tells herself. He always does. But as time drags on, doubt starts creeping in. She catches herself checking her phone more often than she'd like to admit, scrolling through old conversations, searching for reassurance in words already spoken. She replays moments in her mind, dissecting them for any hidden meaning, any sign that she might have miscalculated. She expects anger. She expects desperation, maybe even a final, dramatic plea for her attention. But nothing comes. And that absence, that unshaken silence, it begins to feel suffocating. She thought your presence was something she could afford to take for granted. She assumed you would always wait, always chase, always fight for a space in her life. But now, faced with nothing but the echo of what once was, she realizes something she never considered before. You were never the one who needed her. She was the one who needed you. Like a stoic warrior who understands that attachment is a choice, not a necessity. You chose yourself. You chose your peace. You chose dignity over desperation. And now, as she sits there, confronted by the reality of your absence, she finally understands. Your silence wasn't a reaction. It was a statement. She lost you the moment she believed you would never leave. Number 2, he wasn't like the rest. She's had relationships before, but something was different about you. You never played mind games, never overreacted. You weren't the type to get jealous over nonsense or start pointless arguments. While others let their insecurities dictate their actions, you remained centered, unshaken. She may not have fully appreciated it then, but now, with distance and clarity, she sees what she lost. She remembers the way you carried yourself, not overly emotional, not reactive. You weren't the kind to chase validation or demand attention. Instead, you moved with quiet confidence, like a man who knew his worth. At the time, she might have mistaken it for being cold, distant even. Now she realizes it was strength. While others allowed their emotions to dictate their behavior, you mastered yours. You knew that a man's value isn't in his ability to prove himself constantly, but in his ability to remain composed when the world tries to shake him. A stoic man does not beg for love, nor does he fall apart when it is taken from him. He understands that attachment is temporary, but his principles are eternal. You remained steady in the face of chaos, not because you didn't care, but because you refused to be controlled by fleeting emotions. And that makes you irreplaceable. Now, she's left comparing every man she meets to you. She sees how others react impulsively, get defensive, or crumble under pressure. And, in those moments, it hits her. She lost a man who was rare. A man who could handle life with resilience, who knew his emotions but was never ruled by them. She thought she'd always have access to you, that she could take her time figuring things out. But a real man does not wait forever. When she finally realizes what she lost, it won't be because you told her. It will be because your silence, your absence, speaks louder than any words ever could. And that is the weight of losing a man who knew his value. But here's the real question. How do you carry yourself moving forward? Do you dwell on what's lost, or do you continue to embody the strength that made you unforgettable in the first place? Let's talk about it. Drop a comment below and share your thoughts. Or, if you simply want to let this message sink in, leave this in the comments. A real man does not chase. Let's start a conversation. Number 3. Why can't I find another like him? She thought she could replace you. There are plenty of men out there, right? But as she starts dating again, something feels off. At first, she brushes it aside, telling herself she just needs time. But as the days turn into weeks, then months, that uneasy feeling lingers. She meets new guys, but none of them give her the same feeling. They lack depth. Some try too hard, showering her with empty compliments and grand gestures that feel more like performances than genuine affection. Others are too indecisive, uncertain of themselves, lacking the kind of presence that once made her feel safe and desired. She starts to notice the difference, not just in the way these men treat her, but in the way they carry themselves. Where is the quiet confidence, the stability, the man who knew what he wanted and didn't waver? A real man doesn't just attract, he leaves an imprint that's impossible to forget. And that's where the regret sets in. It's easy to take something great for granted when you think there's always something better around the corner. But when she compares, when she truly sees the contrast, she realizes she didn't just lose any man. She lost you. And here's the thing. Stoicism teaches that true strength isn't about chasing what's lost, but about knowing your worth and walking away with dignity. You never begged, never tried to convince her of your value, because deep down, you understood. A real man doesn't need to prove himself. His actions, his presence, and his unwavering sense of self do that for him. Now, she's left with a choice. Keep searching for a replacement, or sit with the realization that she let go of something rare. And that realization, it stings. Because once a woman has experienced a man who is grounded, self-assured, and emotionally secure, settling for anything less feels hollow. She thought she could replace you. Now, she wonders if she ever truly can. Number 4. I took him for granted. The realization hits her. You were something valuable, and she didn't appreciate it. She took your consistency for granted. She thought you'd always be there, always waiting. But now, your absence is louder than any words could ever be. She replays the moments in her mind, the way you handled her bad moods, how you remained calm when she tested you, how you never let emotions control you. At the time, she might have thought that was just who you were, something normal. Now, she understands. It was rare. Most men would have argued, reacted, or tried to prove themselves. But you stayed composed. You didn't let temporary emotions shake you. A man who has mastered himself is not easily replaced. Your patience, your quiet strength, those are things many don't recognize until they're gone. And that's the irony of it. She thought she had options. She thought she could find someone better, or that you'd always be there when she was ready. But now, she sees the difference between a real man and just another option. There's a weight that comes with this kind of realization. She wonders if she should reach out, but deep down, she knows. Your silence speaks for itself. You're not bitter. You're not playing games. You've simply stepped back, letting the natural consequences of her choices unfold. That's Stoicism in action. You control what you can, yourself. You accept what you can't, her decisions. And by doing that, you become even more powerful. And now, she's the one feeling the loss. Because a real man doesn't chase. He doesn't beg. He walks away with his dignity intact, knowing that his value doesn't decrease just because someone failed to see it. What do you think? Have you ever seen someone realize your value too late? Share your thoughts in the comments, or if you stand firm in your worth, just type, "I don't wait to be valued." Let's keep the conversation going. Number 5. I can get him back, right? She wrestles with her thoughts. Maybe if she reaches out, you'll respond. Maybe she can test the waters. She tells herself she's just checking in, but deep down, she knows she's hoping for another chance. But something is different now. You're not responding like before. You're not engaging. And that's when it hits her. She lost you. Not just temporarily, not in a way where she can reel you back in with a simple message or a casual, "How have you been?" No, this is different. You've stepped into a place where she no longer has access to you. A real man does not look backward. You move forward, with or without her. That's the part she never truly believed would happen. She thought you'd always be there, waiting in the background, lingering in the comfort of what once was. But you, being the kind of man who knows his worth, who understands that time is too precious to be wasted, made peace with the past. And in doing so, you've done something she never expected. You became unavailable. And that's when regret starts creeping in. She replays the moments in her head, the ones she brushed off, the times she assumed you'd always be an option. Maybe she ignored your effort. Maybe she took your patience for granted. Maybe she thought you'd chase her forever. But the silence, the same silence she once thought meant nothing, now speaks louder than anything. In her mind, she can still see the way you looked at her, the way you once cared. But that version of you no longer exists. You've evolved. You've embraced the Stoic truth that attachment to the past is a chain that holds men back, and you have no interest in wearing shackles. A man who values himself doesn't beg for love. He doesn't wait for someone to see his worth. He walks, knowing that the right woman will recognize it without him having to prove a thing. So now, she's left with a realization that stings. She didn't just lose a man, she lost a real man. And that loss isn't just about you not being there anymore. It's about what you represented. Security, strength, stability. qualities that don't come around every day. Number 6. How is he so unbothered? She expected you to be drowning in regret, lost in the aftermath of her departure. She imagined you checking her social media obsessively, looking for clues about her life, hoping for a sign that she might still care. She thought you'd be posting cryptic quotes, leaving behind digital breadcrumbs of sadness, or maybe even attempting to rekindle what was already lost. In her mind, you were supposed to be suffering, desperate to turn back time and undo whatever had driven her away. But instead, you're thriving. You look better, stronger, more composed. There are no emotional outbursts, no dramatic attempts to prove a point. You haven't succumbed to the temptation of reaching out, nor have you entertained the idea of dwelling on what could have been. You're not engaging in petty drama, not broadcasting your pain for attention, not filling the void with empty distractions. You're simply moving forward, unshaken, focused on yourself and your own path. And that stings the most, because deep down, she wanted to believe that she was irreplaceable, that leaving you behind would leave you shattered. She expected you to be a mess, to feel the void of her absence so profoundly that you'd do anything to get her back. But that's not what happened. You didn't break. You adapted. You flourished. You proved that your strength was never dependent on her presence. And that realization hits harder than any words could. See, when a woman loses a real man, it doesn't register all at once. At first, there's a sense of relief, freedom, space, the illusion of something new and exciting. But then, reality sets in. She starts to see the contrast. The men she meets now don't carry themselves with the same quiet confidence. They don't lead with the same unwavering certainty. They don't provide the same emotional security that she once took for granted. The way you handled problems, the way you remained calm in chaos, the way you made her feel safe in a world full of uncertainties, that's not easy to find. And regret? It doesn't come in loud, obvious waves. It creeps in through the silence, in the moments between distractions, in the stillness of late nights when there's no one to fill the space you left behind. She scrolls through her phone, but finds no message from you. She glances at old photos and realizes she let go of something rare. The people around her might be entertaining, but they lack depth. She sees glimpses of you in others, but no one truly measures up. That's when it dawns on her. She didn't just lose a relationship. She lost a man who stood firm, who commanded respect without demanding it, who was both a source of strength and stability. And as time passes, that loss only becomes clearer. Because a man like you doesn't chase. He doesn't beg. He doesn't dwell. He simply moves forward. And in doing so, he leaves behind a void that no one else can fill. Number 7. He was teaching me all along. She starts to see things differently. The way you carried yourself, the way you never chased, never begged. It wasn't arrogance. It was self-respect. And now, in the quiet moments when she's alone with her thoughts, she starts to understand the difference between a man who simply wanted her and a man who knew his own worth. At first, she may have thought you were just another man trying to win her over. But now, looking back, she sees it clearly. You never tried to win anything. You weren't playing a game. You simply existed in your own world, on your own terms. And that's rare. She realizes now that your absence speaks louder than any words you ever said. She looks at the men around her, the ones who try too hard, the ones who seek validation, the ones who let emotions control them, and she sees what she had in you, a man who moved differently, a man who didn't seek approval, because he was already whole. She realizes that you had something most men don't: control. Control over yourself, your emotions, your energy. While others let rejection shake their foundation, you stood firm. While others sought constant reassurance, you remained unshaken. You never let the actions of others dictate your value, and that was something she didn't fully appreciate until now. She remembers how you handled conflict, not with anger, not with emotional outbursts, but with a level head. You were composed, calculated, calm. She now understands that this wasn't indifference, it was strength. She looks back and sees that you never needed to prove your worth because you already knew it. Your confidence wasn't built on external validation, but on something deeper: discipline, purpose, self-mastery. And now she realizes she lost something rare. She may have walked away thinking she had options, thinking she could replace you easily. But time has a way of revealing the truth. You lived by a principle that Stoics, like Marcus Aurelius, understood well. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. And that's what set you apart. You never tried to control her choices, you only mastered yourself. You never begged for attention. You never sought to prove your worth to her. You simply were. And that presence, that strength, is something that lingers in the mind long after you're gone. Now, when she's with other men, she starts to notice what's missing. They react, they seek, they chase, but they don't lead themselves. They don't have the quiet confidence you did. She might not say it out loud, but deep down, she knows. She lost something she might never find again. A real man. A man who never needed her to see his value, because he always knew it himself. And that realization, that's the part that lingers the longest. Number 8. Something's missing. She thought moving on would be easy. After all, relationships come and go, right? That's what people say. But something feels different. Something's missing, and she can't quite put her finger on it. Or maybe she can. At first, she convinces herself that time will do its job, that distractions will help. The attention from new men is there. Compliments, flowers, dinner dates, it's all happening. But none of it feels the same. The words sound empty, the gestures feel rehearsed. The men she meets are either too eager, too emotional, or too unsure of themselves. And no matter how much she tries to embrace the new, she can't shake the feeling that something essential is absent. Then it hits her. It's not just about attraction or compatibility. It's about something deeper, the emotional safety you provided, the way you never lost yourself in chaos, the way your presence made her feel grounded without even trying. She didn't just lose a man, she lost a foundation. And no matter how much she searches, she realizes that what she had with you wasn't common. It wasn't something she could replace overnight, or maybe even at all. A real man doesn't just bring passion. He brings stability. He isn't just confident. He's unshakable. He moves through life with purpose, knowing that his peace of mind is his greatest asset. And because of that, the woman in his life feels a sense of calm, of certainty, of emotional security. When she looks back, she won't just miss the love. She'll miss the steadiness, the reassurance that came with you. Because a real man's presence doesn't just linger, it anchors. And when a woman has experienced that kind of strength, that kind of unwavering masculine energy, she will never truly feel safe with anything less. The Stoics believed that true power comes from self-mastery, that the man who can control himself, his emotions, his reactions, his mindset, is the one who commands the greatest respect. And that's exactly why she feels this loss so deeply. She wasn't just with a man, she was with a force. And now, all she sees are men who lack that center, that inner stability that made you stand apart. Number 9. I didn't appreciate his strength. There were times she got frustrated with you. She wanted to push your buttons, test your patience, see if she could get a reaction. But you never gave her what she was looking for. Instead of getting caught up in emotional games, you remained centered, unshaken. She mistook your composure for indifference. Why weren't you arguing back? Why weren't you chasing after her like other men? Now, she sees it differently. What she once saw as passivity, she now understands, was strength. Your ability to control your emotions wasn't a lack of passion, it was mastery. You weren't avoiding her, you were choosing where to place your energy. And as she looks at the men around her now, she sees the difference. Most men react without thinking. They let jealousy consume them. They become insecure, clingy, or desperate for validation. But you were different. Your self-respect wouldn't allow you to beg for attention or be pulled into unnecessary drama. And now, for the first time, she respects you in a way she never did before, because she finally understands the kind of man you were. A weak man is ruled by his emotions, enslaved by every fleeting feeling. A strong man governs himself, staying steadfast in who he is. And that is what truly separates a real man from the rest. Epictetus once said, "Any person capable of angering you becomes your master." She tried to get under your skin, to pull you into her emotional storms, but you never gave her that power. You understood that true strength isn't about reacting to every impulse, it's about choosing which battles are worth your energy. You mastered yourself, and that made you different. And now that she has lost you, she feels the absence of that strength. She looks around and realizes that most men are easily swayed by emotions, by ego, by the need for validation. But you were the exception. You couldn't be manipulated. You stood firm in your values, never losing yourself to temporary chaos. And now, in your absence, she understands what she had. A real man. A man who, once gone, leaves a void no ordinary man can fill. Because a real man isn't easily replaced. Number 10. He's not coming back. She held on to hope for far longer than she ever should have. At first, it was just a flicker, a thought that maybe, just maybe, if she sent the right message, if she said the perfect words, if she reminded you of a moment you once shared, you would respond. Maybe you'd acknowledge her, maybe you'd come back, even if only for a conversation, for closure, for something. But what she didn't realize then, what she's only starting to understand now, is that some doors, once closed, never reopen. And not because they can't, but because the man who walked through them has no intention of turning back. She wanted to believe she had some kind of control over the situation, that she still had a hold on you, however small. Maybe, if she gave you space, you'd miss her. Maybe if she reached out, you'd soften. Maybe if she reminded you of how good things once were, nostalgia would cloud your judgment, and you'd waver. Maybe guilt would creep in, convincing you to return. But time has made something painfully clear to her. She never had that kind of power over you. She mistook kindness for weakness, mistook patience for permission, mistook your silence for hesitation. But now, in the absence of your presence, she's come to understand who you really are. You were never a man to be swayed by fleeting emotions. You never made decisions based on temporary feelings or empty promises. You were never the type to be manipulated by apologies that arrived too late, nor by affection that only surfaced when you were slipping away. When you chose to walk away, it wasn't an impulsive reaction. It was a calculated decision rooted in self-respect, a choice made with clarity and finality. And that's what unsettles her the most. It's not just that you left, it's that you left and never looked back. She realizes now that what she had wasn't ordinary. She had a man who valued loyalty, consistency, and effort. A man who never begged for love or chased validation. A man who knew his worth and refused to settle for anything less than mutual respect. And in losing you, she didn't just lose a relationship. She lost something rare, something stable, something she may never find again. And that thought haunts her, lingers in her mind late at night when she scrolls through old messages, wondering where it all went wrong. But a Stoic man does not waste his energy on the past. He does not dwell on what could have been, nor does he entertain what no longer serves him. His strength lies in his ability to detach, to move forward with unwavering certainty. When he walks away, he does so without regret, without looking over his shoulder, without seeking validation for his decision. And you are that man. While she is trapped in a loop of regret, replaying memories like a broken record, hoping for a different ending, you are free because you understand something she never did. True strength isn't in holding on. It's in knowing when to let go. Number 11. He changed my standard forever. She moves on. She meets new people. Life continues. But something inside her has changed, her standard. She walks through life differently now, carrying the weight of a lesson she didn't expect to learn. At first, she tells herself she's fine, maybe even better off. She fills the silence with distractions, new faces, new experiences, anything to keep from feeling the absence of what she once had. But there's a difference between moving forward and truly letting go. And deep down, she knows it. Because the kind of presence you had in her life wasn't something she can replace overnight. She used to crave chaos, drama, the thrill of the unknown. She thought that excitement meant unpredictability, that love had to be intense, even exhausting. But now, she sees it differently. Now, she values something deeper. A man who doesn't chase validation, who moves with purpose, who remains grounded no matter what life throws his way. She doesn't just want love anymore. She wants stability, strength, and leadership. And most importantly, she realizes she once had it. She finally understands why she felt so safe with you, why she never had to perform, to impress, to pretend. You weren't needy. You weren't desperate. You weren't trying to prove anything. You simply were. And that, in itself, is rare. She may have taken it for granted at the time. Maybe she thought she had more time, more chances. But now, in your absence, she recognizes the difference between a man who merely occupies space in her life and a man who adds to it. Between someone who follows emotions blindly and someone who masters them. Between a man who seeks approval and a man who is approval in himself. You set a standard she didn't even know she needed. And now, whether she finds another like you or not, one thing is certain. She will never settle for anything less again. A man of true value does not chase, does not beg, does not convince. He does not need to. His presence alone leaves an imprint that time cannot erase. And in the quiet moments, when she's truly honest with herself, she knows. She lost a real man. And that is a loss she won't forget. Epictetus once said, "The key is to keep company only with people who uplift you, whose presence calls forth your best." This is exactly why she cannot forget you. You didn't just exist in her life, you elevated it. And when a woman realizes she has lost a man who made her better, the weight of that realization is something she carries forever. And there it is, proof that silence is sometimes the loudest statement a man can make. She thought you'd always be there, always chasing, always waiting. But the moment you stepped back, the moment you chose yourself, everything changed. Your absence became her wake-up call. Your detachment became her regret. But remember, you didn't do it for revenge. You did it because a Stoic man understands his worth. He does not beg. He does not chase. He simply moves forward, knowing that the right people will recognize his value without him having to prove a thing. This isn't just about making someone miss you. It's about becoming a man who values himself enough to walk away from anything that no longer serves him. The strength you've gained from this isn't about her. It's about you. You've proven that your peace, your self-respect, and your emotional control are worth more than temporary validation. And now, she sees it too. Too late. If this message resonated with you, make sure to like this video. It helps spread the message to more men who need to hear it. Drop a comment below and let me know. What was your biggest takeaway from this video? Have you ever experienced this kind of regret from someone in your past? Let's talk about it. And before you